Hi beauties, welcome back to our weekly vlog where our topic today is addressing the climate crisis through our eating habits. And this is an important topic that affects all of us. I think maybe especially because I'm pregnant and I think about the future generations, I think about our children, I just think about the environment, the animals in the world. It's so important that we have this conversation and we keep this conversation ongoing to see how we can come together to really help support Mother Earth. There is a saying in Ayurvedic medicine that says, as is the micro, as is the macro. And when we start to really clean up our lifestyle and we start to take a much more holistic approach in our lives, it really does affect the greater whole. It affects the greater community. It affects the greater nature and the world. So I start off by saying that because I think sometimes we think that these problems are so big and huge that what can I do? What kind of impact can I have? And actually, the more of us that come together, it's, just like I say, small daily steps make a big difference in how we look and how we feel and in our beauty. It's the same thing when we make changes, each of us as individuals, and we start to make these little steps in our lives, it adds up in an enormous way. So never doubt for a moment how powerful you are. Your part in addressing climate change and environmental issues is essential and important. So remember, you are super important in this. Now, how we eat dictates our energy. It dictates the way that choices that we make and how we vote, essentially. When we, it's again, as is the micro, as is the macro. And one of the most beneficial things we can do for the environment is to become plant-based or to become more plant-based. Because I always say it's not all or nothing. And sometimes people are really put off by this all or nothing philosophy because they can't imagine giving up all their meat right now. And I totally understand that. And I have family members myself that eat some meat, including my husband, but he has cut back a lot. And so I want to say that it's a very, very powerful vote for the environment. Even if you have meatless Mondays, or even if you trade some of your meat-based meals to bean lentil-based alternatives, or you have some of the Beyond Meat products or Impossible Burgers or all the alternative meat products. The reason this is so important is deforestation. Number one, we see what's going on with the Amazon rainforests. This highlights how grass-fed, pasture-raised meat, which is in demand a lot because, education has gotten out about steroids and antibiotics, of course. But the problem is they have to clear forests to make room for these cows and the cattle to graze. And this is destroying forests all around the world. It's destroying trees, it's destroying the natural habitat and environment for these ecosystems in the rainforests. So anytime you can cut back on meat, it's going to help with deforestation. We also know that the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations said that red meat and dairy consumption uses a third of all global cropland and contributes 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So there's also, as specifically related to climate change, what's going on with the gases and the imbalance in the air. So cutting back on meat is also going to help. It's going to greatly help every time we have a plant-based meal. If it's not all or nothing versus an animal-based meal, it's going to be enormously helpful. Now let's talk about fish for a moment. And this really breaks my heart. I live pretty close to the ocean. We know that the oceans are getting overfished. We know that we may come to a place in time where there's no fish left in the ocean, and they're all the non-fish catch like sharks and turtles and dolphins are being destroyed and killed at astronomical rates. So I urge you to trade in a sushi meal or a fish meal again for a plant-based meal based around vegetables, based around quinoa or sweet potatoes, lentils. It's very easy to get protein from plant-based sources. And if you're looking for support, we have a million blogs and vlogs and podcasts around this topic. So take a look if you're interested in learning more. Another great thing to do for the environment is to think about buying local. This cuts back on transportation cost. Local and organic is even more ideal because organic, of course, doesn't put pesticides and heavy herbicides back into the earth, which could be, of course, detrimental and get into the water supply and affect soil quality and so on and so forth. So try to get local, buy local and organic as well. And you can even try growing some of your own food, your own herbs, or easy to grow foods like tomatoes. And that's a great way to cut back on all the shipping back and forth and the carbon footprint as well. So just in conclusion, I just want to remind you how powerful and amazing you are. And every day, every decision you make affects not only yourself, but the greater whole. We're all in this together. This is our one planet, our one world. So local, organic, plant-based, as much as possible, is going to heal Mother Earth. There's a million other things to say about this. You could check out the research of Paul Hawken, who's a big environmentalist who talks about plant-based. You could check out the documentary Cowspiracy. But in general, I just want you to not get overwhelmed and just to think meal by meal or week by week, where can I work in more plant-based meals for me and my family? So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of our community. I send you so much love. We've got lots of support for you here, lots of plant-based recipes and our Feel Good podcast, which covers a ton of different topics, and social @_Kimberly Snyder. I will see you next week for our next vlog as well. Until then, take care and so much love.